Alright, welcome back guys to another video on Rainbow Six Extraction, and what I'm going to be going over here is in my opinion, one of the other really good ops to solo queue in this kind of game, or make it to where that's essentially a one-man army, or I guess one-woman army for this one, and it is Nomad. Now, all these operators, if I'm not mistaken, again, they're all free right off the bat when you first start up the game. Of course, just going to be a grind to level all of them up, and Nomad I do have onto level 10. And she is a 5 armor, so she is one of the most tankiest when it comes to just default uh, resistance to damage. And she's a 3 speed, so she's kind of like in the middle of the road there, a little bit above average in speed there. So she's not really the fastest, but not bad either. So she's kind of really good on one end and fairly good on the other. And her whole gadget is the air jab, just like in Rainbow Six Siege. It's like that little weird foam or like sticky foam kind of like gadget that you can stick to any kind of surface and it'll light up a certain radius around it. What's really cool about this is that when enemies run into them, I believe at first, when you have her on like level 1 or not up to level 10 or anything, when they go into it, it will blow up and stun the enemies, making it to where that they're kind of messed up for a little bit there, or they made it to where they're kind of stunned and you're able to light them up and they're essentially just sitting targets or sitting ducks. But if you do level her up to level 10, I believe, oh no, level 7 here. So level 7, this one will make it to where it'll just straight up obliterate enemies. So there is different types of kill stages that enemies go through, or kill states. You can just straight up shoot them in the body and riddle them and their bodies will be knocked down and dead. Or if you get weak point shots on them, like normal grunts for any kind of highlighted areas that you usually would go to, every different type has a different area for a weak spot. If you shoot them there, they will actually just completely get obliterated. And that's obliterating your enemy, and I'll make it to where that if there's some type of like weird mutations in the game, made it to where that if some enemies are not obliterated or not shot in the weak spot when they are killed, they will actually be revived. So that's also like a really good thing to actually have here. So anything that gets hit with the air jab, it's going to be gone. It's going to be obliterated. You don't need to worry about it coming back to life, killing you. Of course, that's only going to be really affecting you in way harder situations. So I want to go over Nomad with this one because she has what I think is one of the pretty flexible kind of loadouts. So she does have 4 options for weapons here. Her very first one is actually really decent, does the most amount of damage out of all of her weapons aside from the shotgun, but it is the AK-74M. It's the AK-74 from Rainbow Six Siege, so just kind of copy and paste it over to here. Does 44 damage and 26 at with the suppressor, which is actually really high for suppressed weapons, so it's not too bad. So it still hits like a truck. And you also have the ARX 200. This one will do 28 damage, just like that here. So 28, and this one does 26. So this one does hit a little bit harder when it's suppressed. So it does have a little bit more actual hard-hitting power with the suppressor, but if you take it off here, it'll do 47, and the AK here, yeah, will do 44. So as you can see, it does a little bit more damage than the AK-74M. However, there is a little bit of difference between the two. Now, both of them have an extremely similar recoil pattern, so you'll have about the same amount of kick as for both of them. The only difference is the AK-74 shoots a little bit slower than the ARX 200, and it also has a little bit less damage, but it does have a way larger magazine capacity, which is a pretty solid size at 40 rounds, opposed to the ARX 200, which only has a 20 to 21 round magazine. It's a little bit smaller mag, but it is like a weird automatic kind of DMR, and personally, I think it looks like one of the most coolest guns in the game. As you can see, it does hit with a 308 NATO round, so it is more or less like an automatic DMR. So that's kind of how you want to use it there. She also has the Arcade SMG here, which is the AUG A3. It's like a 9mm conversion to the AUG. Does 36 damage by default, and that is a little bit less, but it is an SMG, and it will do 21 damage, which is pretty low with a suppressor, but again, it'll do a pretty low damage with a suppressor despite like whatever gun you're using, but does have a 31 round magazine, which is pretty decent. 32 if you load one while it's in the chamber. And then you finally have the very end one, which is the hardest hitting one in the game, or not in the game, but the hardest hitting weapon for her, and it is the TCSG-12, or the semi-automatic shotgun that shoots slug rounds. So it has a 10 to 11 round magazine, and it shoots slug rounds. So I have to make that to where it's a point. So a lot of people think, it's a normal shotgun, or it is a normal shotgun, but it does shoot out slug rounds instead of the normal buckshot. So this is her version of the DMR. Use it exactly like a DMR, but it does blow holes in walls way faster, so you can use it to where it still has a large amount of viability. And you can run a suppressor on there that does 37 damage, which is on par with like most guns in the game, so it still hits like a truck when you put this on, so it's very flexible. It will be a really solid gun. And of course, it does 63 damage by default, so I think this actually might be one of the hardest hitting guns in the entire game. Aside from the boss cheat, because I think this thing, yeah, as you can see, like even the MK14 here, this only does 60 damage. The boss cheat is the hardest hitting one at 125, so it's second to best being the hardest hitting weapon in the game, and it's semi-automatic opposed from the boss cheat, so you do have a lot more flexibility in that. And in her secondary, she only has two of them. She brings her specialized like 44 Magnum. It is semi-automatic, and it is one of the very few pistols in the game that does have a built-in sight on it, and it is a lot longer range sight. However, it is not a weapon that has any kind of attachment, so you cannot run a suppressor on it. Normally, I kind of do the opposite of what I would normally do, because if you're playing really high level plays, normally you'd have your primary without a suppressor, and you usually use your secondary with a suppressor. I'll kind of like do a little bit of a different here, or different strat. I'll use the ARX with a suppressor, and it'll still hit fairly hard with a suppressor on it, while I can use the 44 Magnum for longer ranges despite it being a pistol, and it hits at a 54 damage, which is pretty dang solid for a secondary. React Tech is whatever the heck you would want it to be, and the gear as well, so that's also a really solid deal. So I think she's really, really good. Advancements, like you can have up to like an extra air jab at the very end. She does have a total of 6 air jabs that you can set up. I want to go over that because they will do a ton of different things. Let's see. Go to New York. I don't know if I'm able to actually have it on here. I might be able to do VR training for this. But what it will do, again, it will kill anything that is an enemy in the area, or anything that is really alien oriented. It will actually just vaporize right on the spot. This means any kind of alien that's around you. I think the only exceptions that do not get vaporized by this is the Apex and Smasher. I think they're a little bit too big. I haven't really used it on the Tormentors yet, but I'm pretty sure those will also be obliterated if they actually walk into it. Now, the Tormentors will actually have to, stand up or like come out of that weird puddle that they normally come out of if you want to get them to hit by that. So it is a little bit tricky on them, so that's why I haven't really been able to get it just yet. You can do that, and it's pretty dang cool, but it will also help out when it comes to saving MIA operators. So normally when you run over to a tree, or we call it a tree, it has like a bunch of tendrils and stuff, you can shoot that. You normally have to wait. I want to skip by this, but you'd have to wait for those little pods to open up so you're able to shoot them, and they'll weaken the tree and take off the tendrils. If you place a air jab next to those little pods, it will obliterate them right when they open. So you essentially have yourself an instant win when it comes to weakening the tree, if you set it up prior or get a little bit more prep time in. So obviously, this is the site. It's extremely clean. It doesn't look realistic at all. Like, it just looks like there's a floating reticle right there, so I'm not really sure what that's all about. Has a really solid rate of fire. Fairly fast reload. And you also have ARX, which you can see doesn't really move at all when you're firing it. That was with me controlling the recoil. I am on the PS5, so I'm sure you guys with the mouse and keyboard will do a little bit better.
That's your target.
Ammo in place.
Take your approach.
See? Now shoot.
So we can get a sample.
Okay, so that was an elite one. Not really sure why it didn't obliterate them right there. I guess never really tried that yet.
You can now move to the
Oh,
airlock.
takedown. Yeah, I thought you meant like takedown as in killing them. Forgot about that. Yeah, so again, headshots will obliterate enemies. Normal body shots, if you don't ever want to actually aim for the head, that'll just knock down their bodies. Usually at lower levels and stuff, you don't really need to worry about that at all. Or really worry about them ever having a chance of getting back up. And I think it's just really cool. She doesn't really have any kind of stealth abilities except for obliterating them right off the bat or stunning them. So she will be able to stun enemies pretty well if it doesn't just straight up obliterate them.
On occasion,
As you can see,
plan auto trackers on next, so we can monitor them.
the handgun is probably like a better way to go about it. She's kind of like a weird backwards op kind of setup when it comes to a loadout.
That's a nest. If it's dormant, plant an auto tracker.
Yeah, every time you go into a VR deal, it'll keep giving you a tutorial. Kind of wish you didn't do that, but there we go. But I'll show you here, because at the end of the VR test, it'll give you a mission for you to take out a tree. And I'll show you guys about that. So as you can see, 2 shots to a grunt will take it out. I'm not really sure how many it'll take to take down other larger versions of these things, but you know, probably you guys can test it out. I don't really stand around and get shot to try to test that, so I can't really tell you for sure.
You can head to extraction or continue to the next subzone.
So we're going to continue here. Again, she does have 6 of these things when you come at the very end of the level, so she can easily knock out an entire tree on her own if you want to go for solo rescues. The best person to really use to go solo and extract your operators or anyone else's operator is going Jaeger, but she is definitely a pretty good second option here. At 23 claymores.
Airlock sequence. Subzone
Actually, no, I wonder. Probably you can get them on the pods and stuff on the ground, but probably claymores will automatically kill the pods.
Let's run through MIA rescue procedures. I've set up a rescue objective. An MIA operator is trapped in an Arcane 3. Finding.
He's a little bit alerted, but he doesn't really quite know where I am. As you can see, when they die, they'll also leave like a little bit of a puddle of sprawl that'll grow out if you don't shoot them in the weak point. So it is always better to obliterate them if you can. Obviously, you're not going to be landing the final blow on their headshot every single time. But you can see how it can be important to do that. And a good little tip for you guys starting out in this game as well. Hold on, wait for her to stop talking. But you can always... The sound's gone, not really sure why that disappeared.
There's the Arcade 3.
There you go.
Pull the MIA out. You'll see how the tree reacts to your rescue attempt.
You can hear that little tracker beacon that's going off next to him. That little beeping noise, and it'll actually give you like a visual indicator of like that little bell. on there, letting you know where the noise is coming from. So that's a good little tip if you want to look for your MIA operator. It just kind of gives you a little proxy indicator or audio cue letting you know, or visual and audio cue when you're near their location. And let's see, so this is one of the pods that I'm talking about. As you can see, they kind of glow when I put my UV light over it. I'll slap on a air jab right next to this, and it'll blow up as soon as they open. I'll go over here, put one right there. Looks like one's all the way up there, so I want to aim and do that. I think that's all of them. Yeah. So now, as you can see, there are no more.
Weaken the Arcade 3 first, then you can pull the
They just
operator
straight
out.
got blown up. So it's always good to start off right off the bat with her. She's able to save MIA operators real quickly, and also set up a pretty good front line. So she doesn't recharge her gear over time like a couple of the operators do. So that's something to keep in mind, but she can definitely be handy in a large amount of scenarios. And again, she is the most tankiest when it comes to resistance, or tankiest when it comes to damage. She has the best damage resistance plus rook armor. Will make it to where she's essentially a tank. Despite her not really having the kind of build or armor to really see to be a tank. Well, that's the role that they gave her.
Place the operator in the extraction
So there we go. That's pretty much Nomad right there. One of my favorite ops to be using, especially when you are new to the game, and you can also have two lasers, so that's cool. So you have two like little yellow lasers if you have one already unlocked, or you already unlocked the laser beam that will burn through sprawl. Look at that. Okay, so there we go. That's really about it.
Prepare for extraction.
Stay close or you'll miss your ride back.
Now if you guys really want to, just let me know down in the comments if you want to continue to see more of these. Again, I'm always setting up matches if you guys want to jump into them. And if you guys actually find this to be, helpful to you guys in any kind of way, just let me know. I can do a bunch of runs through the VR modes and also do gameplay later on, showing them each one of them on how they actually work around, a normal multiplayer environment. Well, that's really up to you guys if you want to see that. But so far, I've covered a couple of them: Gridlock, Vigil, Nomad, and eventually Alibi, which I'll be going over. She probably looks the best when it comes to cosmetics. But all of them really do have their own special skill. I don't have every one of them fully leveled up to level 10 yet, but a lot of them have some real crazy capabilities. Habana is really the anti-everything. I'll probably go over her next. She has like one of the coolest ways to just straight up destroy anybody. Very similar setup as Nomad, and I'll go over that in another episode. But thank you guys for watching. Again, tell me what you guys think about it, and was this helpful to y'all? And aside from that, I'll see you guys in the next one.